Hello, it's Saturday, the 24th of December 2022. It's Christmas Eve, and what could be more in keeping with the Yuletide season than talking about laserdiscs and space aliens? This is a laserdisc I bought recently. It's the 1990 Criterion Collection edition of Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The Spielberg film about alien visitation, originally released by Columbia Pictures in November 1977. So this is a very interesting release. We'll just have a look at some. Yeah, so it's a 3-disc set. Each disc is double-sided, so it's a 6-side set. The movie itself occupies sides 1 to 5, and then side 6, which is the second side of disc 3, has making of material, like a 100-minute documentary. So yeah, this is I was quite happy to get this. It's a bit of a prestigious release. The movie itself, written and directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Richard Dreyfuss, Francois Truffaut, Terry Garr, and Melinda Dillon, it's still one of my all-time favorite films. I've watched it many times over the years. It's certainly still within my top 3 Spielberg. It's a film that never fails to affect me, just on a purely emotional level. The sequence at the end with the mothership, with Francois Truffaut's character and the alien smiling and waving at each other, and the John Williams music still, it still makes me cry. I'm not ashamed to admit. So part and parcel of the film's legacy is the fact that there are several cuts of the film. There are several versions of the film in existence, which these days it's not really that much of a big deal, because obviously there are many films where the studio platoons various cuts, various versions of the films. But with Close Encounters, it was a relatively unique. A relatively unique status for it to have, these variant editions. The reason why, so there's essentially 3 main cuts of the film. There's the original 1977 theatrical cut, the 1980 special edition, and then the 1998 director's edition. So the reason why there were these 3 main versions of the film, it's because when Spielberg made Close Encounters, he originally wanted the film to be released in 1978, but Columbia Pictures, they really wanted the movie to be ready and in theaters by late 1977 for the Christmas market, because the studio, they were going through some financial issues at the time, and they really were depending on this movie to make a lot of money and to basically save the studio. So the film was released. Spielberg finished it as much as he could. It was released on the 16th of November 1977. The film, it was a huge hit, mostly positive reviews, massive money maker. It was second only to Star Wars as the highest, the 1977 film that made the most money. And then so after that happened, Spielberg went to Columbia and said that he wanted to finish off the film. He wanted to go back and shoot the scenes that he didn't have time to do the first time around. So Columbia, they were willing to give Spielberg the money. I think it was $1.5 million to do the reshoots, but Columbia felt that the expense of doing the reshoots and putting it back in the cinema as a re-release, they felt that there needed to be like a marketing hook, like a gimmick to lure audiences back to see it. So they told Spielberg that they would give him the money to do the special edition, but he had to include a new sequence showing the interior of the mothership, showing what does Richard Dreyfuss see when he goes into when he walks into the mothership, because he didn't see it in the original version of the film. So Spielberg agreed to that condition, and he made the special edition of Close Encounters, which was released in August 1980, so almost 3 years after the theatrical version. The special edition, interestingly, the special edition is actually shorter than the theatrical version. The theatrical version is 132 minutes, 135 minutes. And the special edition is 132 minutes. So the special edition is actually a couple of minutes shorter. So Spielberg, he did add some new scenes in, but he also deleted a lot of stuff as well. He tightened up the midsection of the film. He got rid of a lot of stuff in the middle. And the main, I think the 2 big sequences he added are the Gobi Desert sequence, where the American bulk carrier, the SS Cotopaxi, is discovered in the middle of the Gobi Desert. that was a scene that he really wanted to do. He didn't have time or money to do it the first time, so he put that in. And then there was the special edition, the mothership interior sequence. Incidentally, the Cotopaxi, which had disappeared in 1925, it wasn't taken by aliens. It was actually, the wreck was actually discovered off the coast, 40 miles off the coast of Florida in the 1980s, and it was officially. They officially announced that it was a Cotopaxi, I think, in 2020. So so that part of the film unfortunately doesn't really stand up to the historical record anymore. But who cares? So for many years, the special edition of Close Encounters was pretty much the de facto version that was most widely available. I don't know if the theatrical version was actually released on VHS. I think it was a special edition that was released on VHS. But Spielberg was never entirely satisfied with the special edition. He felt that he never really liked the mothership, revealing what was inside the mothership. That imposition was placed on him. So what happened was for the film's 20th anniversary in 1997, Spielberg edited the film again, and what the result of that was what's referred to as the director's edition, which was released in 1998, which is kind of it's a composite of the two previous versions. It's 137 minutes, so it's longer than the two previous versions, and it's basically the special edition, but it has some scenes that were deleted from the special edition that were originally in the theatrical version are sort of put back in, and the mothership interior is deleted. So it's kind of it's Spielberg's preferred version, and that has become like the default standard version of the film ever since. The Criterion LaserDisc, which I have here, is quite interesting because it presents two versions of the film. Ostensibly the original theatrical version and the special edition. So this was 1990, so this was before the director's edition. It's interesting because it's not the special edition is there, but it's the kind of the default viewing version on this set is the theatrical version. Although it does have one shot from the special edition that's in it, so it's not quite the theatrical version, but it's close enough. The scenes from the special edition are sort of the chapters are like at the end of each disc. So if you want to watch the special edition, you have to program the disc or the scenes, the chapters in a certain way, and then it will play. Because this is before seamless branching. So, but anyway, the fact that the special edition is kind of the secondary version on here, it's sort of, you can kind of see that this was a precursor to the director's edition, where with Spielberg phasing out the special edition, which is quite interesting. This is an Australian VHS edition of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So this is a special edition, the 1980 version of the film. This is a VHS from 1981, which I acquired secondhand. It's a little bit. I don't know if I've ever actually played this to see if it works, but the you can sort of see it's getting a bit. The plastic is kind of molting. So so for many years, if you wanted to watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, on video, this was pretty much it, the 1980 special edition. And I'm fairly certain that on television growing up, the special edition was the only version that played on television as well. This is another Australian VHS. This is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the collector's edition. So this was released in 1999. This contains the 1998 director's edition. On the first cassette, it's a two cassette set, and the second cassette contains the 100-minute making of documentary, which is also on the Criterion LaserDisc. So I'll just have a. Yeah, and this is a widescreen edition, which was at the time was a relatively novel for VHS, because the standard setting for VHS was, of course, full screen. This is the DVD equivalent of the VHS that we just looked at. So this is the director's edition 2-disc DVD set. So this is released in, I think, 2001. So this is, again, the director's edition along with the making of documentary. Superseding that previous DVD is this, which is the Close Encounters of the Third Kind 30th Anniversary Ultimate Edition. So this is a real. I remember I bought this in 2007. I was really, really happy to get it. This contains all three official versions of the film. The 135-minute theatrical version, 132-minute special edition, and the 137-minute director's edition. So they're all you have your choice of watching whichever one you want to watch, and also has like loads of extra features. And it's got a I think it's a 64-page booklet as well. So this is a really good thing, and it's sort of interesting that unlike certain other directors who revise their films and then like try to purge the theatrical versions from existence. Spielberg is one of those guys, I guess like Ridley Scott with Blade Runner as well, where he is happy to sort of retain all of the versions so that viewers can have their choice of watching whichever version they prefer, even if Spielberg, even if there are versions out there that he doesn't personally care for, he's happy to, let those cuts of the film still exist in perpetuity. This is the 30th anniversary Ultimate Edition Blu-ray. So this is basically the Blu-ray equivalent of the DVD version we just looked at again. So this has all three versions of the film, and it also has the booklet. This is a 2012 Blu-ray. So I think this is a UK edition of the version that we just looked at before. That was Australian. This is a UK one. I'm not entirely sure why I bought this one, but I've never actually opened it. But again, I think it contains everything that I mentioned in the previous version has. I don't really like that font. It's very generic. Yeah, so I mean, as you probably realized at this point, Close Encounters is a film that I just cannot stop myself from buying, more and more editions of. This is the 40th anniversary Blu-ray edition, so this was released in 2017. I think this retains all of the special features from the previous Blu-ray version, and it's got some extra stuff on it. It doesn't have the chunky booklet though, unfortunately. So this is one way to make sure that I never get rid of previous versions. Is because they don't. Not every subsequent version retains everything that the previous version had. So yeah, I would be interested to know if there will be any further editions of Close Encounters released, or if this is definitive as comprehensive as it's going to get. Some miscellaneous copies of Close Encounters merchandise. Here we have the original soundtrack album by John Williams, one of my favorite John Williams scores. So this is the original 1977 LP. It's kind of interesting. The front of the sleeve, it says, includes a special bonus record of the theme of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There is no bonus record here. It's really just the one the one LP. So I don't know if there was a bonus disc that was ever included in this that isn't in this copy anymore. I don't know. This is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the novelization. So this was released by Sphere Books in 1978. Sphere Books also in the UK, they released the novelization of Star Wars as well. The novelization of Star Wars was credited to George Lucas, but it was actually written by Alan Dean Foster. And this novelization of Close Encounters is credited to Steven Spielberg. Spielberg didn't write this, at least he didn't write it by himself. It was either ghost-written by Leslie Waller, or it was written by Spielberg and Leslie Waller, but it wasn't. This book wasn't the work of Spielberg. So it wasn't the work of Spielberg in its entirety. But so that's a pretty good book. Here we have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the photo novel. So this is sort of an interesting sort of relic of what they did with popular movies many years ago, where they'd release a novel where it would just be scenes, photographs from the movie, and then there would be have like captions and dialogue and stuff. So it's kind of like a comic book using photographs. So once again, it's based on the screenplay by Steven Spielberg. Incidentally, the film itself officially credits the movie as being written and directed by Steven Spielberg. Spielberg didn't actually write the screenplay by himself. There were some other hands involved. Paul Schrader actually wrote an early draft of the film that Spielberg didn't care for. I don't know if much of anything from Schrader's screenplay ended up in the finished film, but the film itself, the screenplay, I believe Spielberg did have some help from I think Jerry Belson might have had a hand in it, and Spielberg's friends Hal Barwood and Matthew Robbins, I think they contributed to the film as well. But yeah. This is the book Spielberg, Truffaut and Me by Bob Balaban. So Bob Balaban, he's a great character actor. He's in the film of Close Encounters. He plays David Laughlin, the cartographer slash interpreter. So he kept a diary when he was filming the movie. And this book was originally released, it was published in 1978 as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, An Actor's Diary. It went out of print, and then in 2002, for the film's 25th anniversary, the book was re-released as Spielberg, Truffaut, and Me. It's a really good book. I heartily recommend it. If you're a fan of the film. I came across this book by chance. I didn't even know it existed until I came across it in Voltaire and Rousseau, which is a secondhand bookstore, a store I really like visiting when I can. It's a secondhand bookstore in my hometown of Glasgow, Scotland. I got this for £2.75, which was good value. Here we have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the ultimate visual history. So this is a book by Michael Clastorin. This is a really fantastic book. Very prestigious looking. It's got lots of visual material, lots of stills, photographs, conceptual artwork. It's a really fantastic film. It's filled with a lot of really great anecdotes. One thing I did, Francois Truffaut, who's in this film, the great French filmmaker. He's one of my favorite directors. He was a genius. So he's in the film, obviously. There's a really good anecdote in here where Melinda Dillon explains that on the set, it was being filmed in Mobile, Alabama. So on the set, Spielberg, Richard Dreyfuss, and Francois Truffaut all had trailers on the set, but Truffaut decided to stay in a motel nearby, and he actually arranged for Melinda Dillon to get his trailer on the set, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's like, I always like hearing, when your personal heroes are, turn out to be, decent human beings. That's always good to hear. Here we have a magazine, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, official authorized edition, which I acquired from eBay. It's a very striking image on the front. And here we have Close Encounters of the Third Kind official collector's edition. So this is another official magazine. And here we have Mad Magazine issue 200 from July 1978, which includes a parody of Close Encounters and has obviously a Close Encounters themed front cover. So because there are so many versions of Close Encounters, the three main versions, it's always a question amongst, I guess, film buffs and fans of the film as to which version is the best, or which version is one's personal preference. It's an interesting question for me to answer, because for many years, like as I said before, the only version of Close Encounters you could see in Australia, at least for many years, was the special edition. That was the only version on VHS. It was a version that was always played on television. So consequently, that was the first version of the film I'd ever seen. It was a version I rewatched a lot as a kid. And so that was a version I was used to. So when I saw the director's edition, and it didn't have the mothership sequence, the interior of the mothership, I felt like something was missing. I was always used to that scene being there, and it was kind of jarring for it not to be there. And I sort of decided I didn't really like that version. I preferred the version I was used to, the special edition. My feelings have actually changed since then, now that I'm a little bit older. Interestingly, my reasons for coming around to not wanting the mothership's interior sequences is actually not to do with Spielberg. I mean, Spielberg said that he didn't like that scene because he felt that it revealed too much, and it was better for the interior of the ship to be left to the viewers' imaginations, and it's disappointing to actually see what's in there. It's better to just imagine it, which, I understand, but the reason I sort of have grown to prefer that scene to not be there is nothing to do with imagination. It's just to do with pacing. It's because in the original version of the film and in the director's edition, Richard Dreyfuss as Roy Neary, he sort of ascends the steps, he goes into the mothership, and then it cuts back to Truffaut and the alien saying goodbye to each other, and it's, the pacing, it just works really well. In the special edition, you have Roy Neary going up into the ship, then you have him go inside, and he's standing around for however long it is, 3, 4, 5 minutes, with all this special effects stuff going on. And then it cuts back to Truffaut and the alien, and now that I'm a little older and maybe a bit more savvy when it comes to film, it feels like the pacing is just thrown off. It feels like that mothership interior sequence just kind of, it's sort of intrusive, and it sort of just, it blocks the flow of the narrative or emotion or whatever you want to call it. It just feels that it kind of ruins that scene. So I've come around belatedly to preferring the director's edition. There's also a really good sequence that was in the theatrical edition, that was deleted from the special edition, but then put back into the director's edition, which is the Air Force press conference sequence, which is a really good scene. And I'm annoyed that it's not in the special edition. So if I watch the special edition, I feel kind of annoyed that that scene's not in there. So, if you're going to watch Close Encounters, I think the best way to experience it is to watch the director's edition, which is Spielberg's preferred cut of the film, and then once you've watched it, just go back and watch the mothership sequence just on its own as an extra scene. So that way you can sort of see the inside of the ship if you want, but you're not losing, you're not getting it, you're not ruining. I feel the pace and flow of the film. So anyway, Merry Christmas and keep watching the skies.